Billionaire came home early and found his maid's sick baby on his bed, what she said made him go silent. Marcus Whitmore had built his empire on precision, control, and an impenetrable wall around his heart. At 34, he'd learned that trust was a luxury billionaires couldn't afford. Every smile hid an agenda. Every kindness concealed a motive. His penthouse apartment in Manhattan's most exclusive building reflected his life, pristine, expensive, and utterly devoid of warmth. He wasn't supposed to be home. The Tokyo deal should have kept him away for another week, but his instincts had screamed that something was off about the numbers. Those instincts had made him rich, so he'd boarded the red-eye without telling anyone, arriving at his building just after dawn. The private elevator opened directly into his apartment. The moment the door slid apart, Marcus knew something was wrong. There was a sound, a soft, whimpering cry that didn't belong in his carefully controlled world. His jaw tightened as he moved silently through the foyer, past the living room where million-dollar art hung on walls that had never heard laughter. The sound grew louder as he approached his bedroom, and with it came something else, the low, desperate murmur of a woman's voice, singing. Marcus pushed open the door, and the scene before him shattered every assumption he'd constructed about his household. There, on his $8,000 imported Italian bedspread, lay a tiny child. She couldn't have been more than 3, her small body trembling beneath a fever that flushed her cheeks an alarming red. Beside her, perched on the edge of his bed with her back to the door, sat Elena Rodriguez, his maid of 6 months. Elena was 28, though her tired eyes often made her look older. She worked with a quiet efficiency that Marcus appreciated, never speaking unless spoken to, never leaving a trace of herself in his space. He knew nothing about her, and that was exactly how he preferred it. But now she was singing to a sick child in his bed, her voice cracking with exhaustion and fear. Her hand moved in gentle circles on the little girl's back, and Marcus noticed her own clothes were damp. Whether from tears or from bathing the child's fever, he couldn't tell. "What?" he said, his voice cutting through the room like ice. "Is going on here?" Elena spun around, her face draining of what little color it had. She was still wearing her cleaning uniform, but it was rumpled and stained. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hair, usually pinned back neatly, fell in disarray around her shoulders. "Mr. Whitmore," she gasped, standing so quickly she swayed. You weren't supposed to be back until..." "Clearly." Marcus's eyes moved from Elena to the child on his bed. "I'll ask again. What is this?" The little girl whimpered, and Elena's hand flew to her mouth, torn between her employer and her daughter. The daughter won. She turned back to the child, placing a hand on her forehead. "She's burning up," Elena whispered, more to herself than to Marcus. "I've been trying to bring it down, but it keeps climbing." "You brought a sick child into my home?" Marcus's voice was deadly calm, the tone that made boardrooms fall silent. "Into my bedroom?" Elena's shoulders squared, and when she turned to face him again, Marcus saw something in her eyes he hadn't seen in years, pure, desperate courage born of maternal love. "I had no choice," she said, her voice shaking but steady. "Please, Mr. Whitmore, I can explain." "Then explain." He crossed his arms, his 6'2" frame blocking the doorway. "You have 60 seconds before I call security." Elena's hands twisted together, but she lifted her chin. "Her name is Sophia. She's my daughter. 3 years old. I got a call from the sitter at midnight." Sophia's fever spiked to 104. The sitter panicked and left. "I had no one else, and I couldn't leave her alone in our apartment. She was so sick, Mr. Whitmore, and so scared." "So you brought her here?" "It wasn't a question. I had the early shift. I was supposed to come in at 5 anyway to prepare for your return tomorrow, or what I thought was tomorrow." Elena's words came faster now, tumbling over each other. "I thought I could take care of her here, keep her comfortable until the clinic opened at 8. I put her in my supply closet at first, but she started crying, and I was afraid she'd wake the other residents, and I just..." "You put her in my bed. I know it was wrong. I know I violated your privacy and your trust, and I'll pack my things immediately. But please," Elena's voice broke. "Before you call security, Can I just take her to the clinic? She needs a doctor. After that, I'll leave quietly. You'll never see me again. Marcus looked at the woman before him. In 6 months, she'd been a ghost in his home. Arriving before he woke, leaving after he slept, maintaining his space with invisible efficiency. He'd never wondered if she had a family, a life, dreams beyond vacuuming his carpets and organizing his closets. Now he saw her truly for the first time, a mother, terrified and exhausted, who had risked everything for her child. The little girl, Sophia, coughed, a wet, rattling sound that seemed too big for her tiny body. Her eyes flickered open, fever-bright and unfocused. "Mommy," she whimpered. And Marcus Whitmore, who hadn't felt his heart move in a decade, felt something crack in his chest. "How long has she been like this?" Marcus heard himself ask, his voice softer than he'd intended. Elena blinked, clearly expecting to be escorted out, not questioned. "The fever started yesterday morning. I thought it was just a cold. I gave her medicine, kept her hydrated. But last night it got worse, and she swallowed hard. I'm trying to save money for nursing school. I don't have health insurance yet. The free clinic doesn't open until 8. Marcus checked his watch. 6:15. Still nearly 2 hours. He looked at the child again. Sophia's breathing was shallow and rapid, her small chest rising and falling with effort that made something twist in his gut. "Have you given her anything?" he asked. "Children's fever reducer. 4 hours ago. I've been using cool compresses," but Elena's voice caught. "It's not enough. I know it's not enough." Marcus pulled out his phone. Elena flinched, probably expecting him to call security, but instead he dialed a number from his favorites list. "Dr. Chen," he said when the line connected. "I need you at my apartment. Now." He paused, listening. "I don't care if you're at your daughter's recital. This is a child with a fever over 104. How fast can you get here?" Another pause. 20 minutes. Good. He ended the call and looked at Elena, whose mouth had fallen open. "Dr. David Chen is one of the best pediatricians in New York," Marcus said curtly. "He's on retainer for emergencies. He'll be here soon." "I can't pay for her." "I didn't ask if you could pay for it." Marcus moved to the bed, looking down at Sophia with an expression Elena couldn't read. "What are her symptoms besides the fever?" Elena's professional mask crumbled. She sank back onto the bed beside her daughter, stroking the child's damp curls. "Cough, congestion, and she said her throat hurt yesterday. She's barely eaten. I've been trying to get fluids in her, but she keeps pushing the cup away." "Has she urinated recently?" The clinical question seemed to ground Elena. "Not since midnight." Marcus's jaw tightened. Dehydration. He left the room and returned moments later with several bottles of water and what looked like children's electrolyte solution. "Where did you?" Elena started. "The building has a concierge service that stocks emergencies." He set the bottles on the nightstand. "Try again with this one." Small sips. Elena took the electrolyte drink with trembling hands. "Mr. Whitmore, I don't understand. Why are you helping us?" It was a question Marcus couldn't answer, even to himself. He'd spent 34 years building walls, staying uninvolved, trusting no one. This woman had violated his space, his privacy, his most fundamental rule about keeping people at arm's length. But when he looked at Sophia's flushed face, he didn't see an inconvenience. He saw vulnerability, innocence, and a terror that transcended business deals and bottom lines. "Because she's a child," he said finally. "And she's sick." For the next 15 minutes, they worked in strange tandem. Elena coaxed sips of fluid into Sophia while Marcus adjusted the room's temperature, brought fresh, cool cloths, and even, though he'd never admitted, spoke softly to the little girl when Elena went to wet the towels. "Hey, pequeña," he said awkwardly, using the Spanish word he'd heard Elena use. "The doctor's coming. You're going to feel better soon." Sophia's fever-bright eyes focused on him for a moment. "You're tall," she whispered, then coughed. "Yeah," Marcus said, surprised to find a small smile tugging at his lips. "I am. Are you a giant?" "No. Just a guy who owns this apartment." "It's really big," Sophia murmured. "Bigger than our whole building." The simple observation hit Marcus harder than it should have. He looked at Elena, really looked at her, and wondered for the first time what her life was like. What kind of building did she live in? How far did she travel every day to clean his home? What did she dream about while she dusted his shelves? Dr. Chen arrived in 18 minutes, carrying a medical bag and wearing rumpled concert clothes. He was a short, efficient man in his 50s who'd been Marcus's family doctor when Marcus was a child, back when the Whitmores had still been a family. Marcus, he nodded, then immediately focused on his patient. And who's this brave girl? Sofia Rodriguez, Elena said quickly. 3 years old. Fever started yesterday, spiked to 104 last night. Symptoms include cough, congestion, sore throat, and decreased fluid intake. Dr. Chen's eyebrows rose slightly at the organized report. You have medical training? I'm a CNA, studying to become an RN. Well, you've done well keeping her stable. He set down his bag and began a gentle examination. Let's see what we're dealing with, Sophia. Can you open your mouth for me? Say, ah. Marcus stood back and watched as the doctor worked. He noticed how Elena held her daughter's hand, murmuring encouragement in Spanish. He noticed the worn state of Elena's shoes, the way her uniform had been mended at the hem. He noticed that Sophia's clothing, while clean, was clearly secondhand. He noticed things he'd trained himself not to see for over a decade. Strep throat, Dr. Chen announced after several minutes. Pretty textbook case. I'll write a prescription for antibiotics and something for the pain. With treatment, she should start feeling better within 24 hours. Elena's relief was so profound she swayed. Marcus found himself reaching out to steady her, his hand on her elbow. She looked up at him with eyes full of tears. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Marcus released her quickly, stepping back. The pharmacy on 5th Avenue will be open by now. I'll have my driver take you. I can take the subway. My driver, Marcus repeated firmly. We'll take you. We'll wait. And we'll bring you back. By the time Elena and Sophia returned from the pharmacy, Marcus had made decisions he didn't fully understand. He'd called his assistant and cleared his morning. He'd ordered breakfast from the hotel restaurant downstairs, including toast and broth for Sophia. And he'd moved his laptop to the dining room table because somehow having them in his bedroom while he worked in his office felt wrong. None of this made sense. Marcus Whitmore didn't rearrange his life for people.
He didn't get involved.
He certainly didn't spend his morning concerned about a feverish 3-year-old who'd invaded his private space. Yet here he was, listening for the elevator, releasing a breath he didn't know he'd been holding when the doors opened, and Elena carried Sophia back inside. The medicine should start working soon, Elena said quietly. She looked wrung out, like a woman who'd been running on fumes for too long. I'll just keep her in the service room until my shift ends, and then… Absolutely not. The words came out harder than Marcus intended. He softened his tone marginally. She needs rest. Real rest. The guest room has a bed. Put her there. Elena stared at him. Mr. Whitmore, I can't. You can and you will. Marcus stood, suddenly uncomfortable with his own generosity. Consider it part of your employment benefits. Sick leave for family emergencies. Which you apparently didn't know you had because I never bothered to set up proper HR policies for household staff. It was true. Elena was paid through a service, treated as a contractor rather than an employee. It had never occurred to Marcus that this might mean she lacked basic benefits. It had never occurred to him to care. I don't understand, Elena said slowly. Why are you being so kind?
Kind.
The word landed strangely. When was the last time someone had called Marcus Whitmore kind? In business, he was known as ruthless, brilliant, cold. His ex-fiancée had called him emotionally unavailable. His own mother, before she died, had worried he was becoming hard. But this wasn't kindness, he told himself. It was logic. The child was sick. Medical attention had been required. The situation was now being managed efficiently. Except logic didn't explain why he personally carried Sophia to the guest room when Elena's arms trembled with exhaustion. Logic didn't explain why he adjusted the temperature controls himself, or why he made sure the curtains were positioned to keep the room dim but not dark. "She'll sleep better here," Marcus said, stepping back as Elena tucked Sophia into the bed, a bed that probably cost more than several months of Elena's salary. "Mommy," Sophia murmured, her eyes already closing. "The giant is nice." Elena laughed softly, a sound that transformed her tired face into something unexpectedly lovely. "Yes, Mija. The giant is very nice." Marcus retreated to the dining room, trying to focus on emails. Instead, he found himself listening to the soft sounds from the guest room, Elena's gentle humming, Sophia's congested breathing gradually evening out into sleep. An hour later, Elena emerged. She'd splashed water on her face and repinned her hair, but the exhaustion was bone deep. "She's sleeping," Elena reported. "The fever's already down a degree. I should start on the cleaning."
No.
Marcus closed his laptop. "You should sit down before you fall down." "Mr. Whitmore, I'm here to work. You're here because your daughter needed help and now you both need rest." He gestured to the breakfast spread that had been delivered. "When did you last eat?" Elena's silence was answer enough. "Sit," Marcus said, and this time it was a command she obeyed. He watched as she took small, careful bites of toast, as if afraid to take too much. It bothered him more than it should have. "Tell me about nursing school," he heard himself say. Elena looked up, surprised.
Why?
"Because I'm curious." It was the truth, though he couldn't explain why. "You're a CNA now. How long until you're an RN?" 2 more years, if I can maintain my course load." Elena's eyes lit up when she talked about it, the exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "I'm taking classes at community college at night after my shifts. My neighbor watches Sophia, but she can only do it 3 nights a week, so I'm going slower than I'd like. But once I have my RN license, I can get a hospital job with benefits and Sophia will have health care and—" She stopped abruptly, as if realizing she was sharing too much with her employer. "And," Marcus prompted. "And we'll have a real life," Elena finished softly. "Stability. Security. A future." Marcus knew about wanting security. His had come through money, through building an empire so vast that nothing could threaten it. But Elena's security was simpler, more human, a job with benefits, health care for her daughter, the ability to stop living on the edge of catastrophe. "Sophia's father?" he asked, then immediately regretted the intrusion. But Elena answered anyway, her voice steady. "Gone before she was born. He was my high school boyfriend. When I told him I was pregnant, he said he wasn't ready to be a father." She shrugged, a gesture of hard-won acceptance. "So I did it alone. I've been doing it alone. And we're okay." "Okay." Marcus looked at this woman who worked herself to exhaustion, who studied at night, who'd risked her job to care for her sick child, and he wondered what "okay" really meant to her. "You won't lose your job over this," he said suddenly. "Over bringing Sophia here. I'm revising the household employment policies. Sick leave, health insurance, proper benefits. You'll have them." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just rest. Stay with Sophia today. Come back to work when she's better." "Mr. Whitmore." Marcus. The word surprised him as much as it did her. "When we're not in a professional setting, you can call me Marcus." Over the next 3 days, Marcus Whitmore's carefully controlled life developed an unexpected rhythm. He'd wake early, check his emails, then pause outside the guest room to listen for Sophia's cough. Elena would emerge around 7, always apologizing for their presence, always offering to work, always being told no. On the second day, Marcus came home from a meeting to find Sophia sitting up in bed, still pale but smiling, while Elena read to her from a worn picture book. "The dragon wasn't really bad," Sophia was explaining seriously. "He was just lonely." "Is that so?" Elena smiled.
Yeah.
"That's why he took the princess. He just wanted a friend." Marcus found himself lingering in the doorway, listening to Sophia's feverish wisdom about lonely dragons. He thought about his penthouse, so carefully designed to impress, so utterly empty of warmth. Was he the dragon in this scenario? On the third day, Sophia was well enough to be bored. Marcus returned from a conference call to find her standing in his living room, staring up at a painting. "It's upside down," she announced. Marcus blinked. "What?" "The painting. It's upside down.
See?
The clouds should be on top." Elena rushed in, mortified. "Sophia, I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitmore." I turned my back for 2 seconds. But Marcus was looking at the painting, an abstract worth $700,000, and damned if the kid wasn't right. The gallery had hung it wrong 3 years ago, and he'd never noticed. "Huh," he said. Then to Sophia, "Good eye." Sophia beamed. "Mommy says I notice things." "Your mommy is right." Marcus crouched down to Sophia's level, a gesture that felt foreign but somehow natural. "What else do you notice?" Sophia's eyes went wide at being taken seriously. She looked around the room with solemn concentration. "You don't have any toys," she said finally. "Or pictures of people. Just lonely paintings. Are you a lonely dragon too?" The question hit Marcus like a physical blow. Out of the mouths of babes, as they said. He looked up at Elena, who seemed mortified and close to tears. "Sophia, that's not polite," she started. "It's fine," Marcus said quietly. "And yes, Sophia, I suppose I am a bit of a lonely dragon." "That's sad," Sophia said with the devastating honesty of childhood. "Everyone needs friends. Even dragons." That night, after Elena had taken Sophia back to the guest room, Marcus stood in his living room and really saw it for the first time in years.
Sophia was right.
There were no photographs, no mementos, no signs that a human being with connections and memories lived here. Just expensive art and designer furniture arranged with magazine-perfect precision. When had he become this person? He knew the answer. Slowly, over years of betrayals big and small. A business partner who'd stolen his ideas. A girlfriend who'd leaked his strategies to a competitor. His own father, who'd gambled away the family fortune before dying in a drunk driving accident, leaving teenage Marcus to rebuild everything alone. Trust was a liability, emotions were weaknesses, and attachment was danger. Except here was Elena, who trusted him with her daughter's health. Here was Sophia, who looked at him without seeing his bank account or his reputation. Here was something real in his carefully constructed fortress. It terrified him. The next morning, Marcus made a decision. He found Elena in the kitchen, preparing Sophia's breakfast. "I want to set up a college fund for Sophia," he said without preamble. Elena nearly dropped the bowl she was holding.
"What? No."
"Mr. Whitmore, I can't accept. It's not for you. It's for her." Marcus pulled out his phone, already mentally calculating. A full scholarship fund. Undergraduate, graduate if she wants it. Managed by a trust, accessible when she turns 18. That's too much. Why would you do that? Because she's smart. Because she sees paintings that are upside down and knows that dragons are just lonely. Marcus met Elena's eyes. Because no child should have their future limited by circumstances beyond their control. Elena sat down slowly, her hands shaking. "I don't understand you," she whispered. "Everyone says you're this cold, ruthless businessman. But you've shown us more kindness in 3 days than..." Her voice broke. "Then what?" "Than anyone has in 3 years," Elena finished. "Since Sophia was born. My family disowned me for getting pregnant. My friends disappeared. It's been just us against the world for so long, and then you called a doctor. You gave us a room. You're talking about college funds. I don't understand what you want from us." Marcus realized with sudden clarity that Elena was waiting for the other shoe to drop. She was used to kindness having conditions, help having strings attached. "I don't want anything," he said slowly. "Maybe I see you working so hard. I see how much you love her. And I have resources that are just sitting there, not doing anyone any good. Why shouldn't they help someone who deserves it? But we're nobody to you. Maybe you were. 3 days ago." Marcus found the words difficult but necessary. "But Sophia told me that everyone needs friends. Even dragons. Maybe I'm trying to figure out what that means." A week later, Sophia was fully recovered and back in Elena's apartment. The penthouse felt strangely empty without her chattering voice, without Elena's soft humming as she tended to her daughter. Marcus told himself he was relieved to have his space back, but he found himself checking the guest room anyway, as if expecting to find them still there. Elena returned to work, but something had shifted between them. She still maintained professional boundaries, but there was a warmth now, a trust that hadn't existed before. Sophia asks about you, Elena mentioned one morning while organizing his office. She wants to know if the lonely dragon is okay. Marcus looked up from his laptop. Tell her the dragon is adjusting. To what? To the possibility that maybe the tower doesn't have to be so empty. Elena smiled, and Marcus realized he'd been unconsciously trying to earn that smile more and more often. He'd started coming home earlier, timing it to when Elena was still there. He'd ask about Sophia's day, about Elena's classes, about their lives in a way that would have been unthinkable a month ago. His assistant noticed the change. You seem different, she observed during a meeting review. Less intense. I'm exactly the same, Marcus countered. You approved funding for an employee wellness program yesterday. You've never cared about employee wellness. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. It's good business. Healthy employees are productive employees.
Right.
And the scholarship fund you established? Also good business. He'd done more than set up a college fund for Sophia. He'd established a scholarship program for children of service workers, housekeeping, maintenance, security. 20 full scholarships a year, renewable and comprehensive. Social responsibility, Marcus muttered. Good PR. His assistant smiled knowingly. Whatever you say, boss. The truth was, Marcus was changing, and it scared him. Every instinct screamed that caring was dangerous, that attachment was vulnerability, that trust was a weapon waiting to be used against him. But then he'd remember Sophia's fever-bright eyes saying, everyone needs friends, and Elena's grateful tears when he told her she wouldn't lose her job and something in him would settle. 2 months after the incident, Marcus did something unprecedented. He invited them to dinner. You want us to what? Elena asked, certain she'd misheard. Have dinner. Here. You and Sophia. Marcus tried to sound casual, as if this wasn't completely terrifying. I had my chef prepare food, and there's enough for 3, and I thought. He cleared his throat. Sophia said I needed friends. I'm trying. Elena's expression softened. You're serious? I don't joke about dinner invitations. No, I suppose you don't. She hesitated. Sophia would love that. But Mr. Whitmore? Marcus. Marcus, she corrected, still uncomfortable with the familiarity. Are you sure? We're not your charity case. I know you're not. This is me wanting company. Is that so hard to believe? Elena studied him for a long moment. A few months ago?
Yes. Now.
She smiled.
No.
We'd love to come to dinner. That Friday evening, Marcus Whitmore found himself nervous for the first time in years. He'd faced down hostile board members, aggressive takeovers, and international negotiations without breaking a sweat. But the thought of a 3-year-old and her mother coming to dinner had him second-guessing every detail. Was the food too fancy for a child? Should he have bought toys? What did people even talk about at dinner? When the doorbell rang, Elena had insisted on using the main entrance this time. Marcus took a breath and opened the door to find Sophia in a little dress, her hair in careful pigtails, clutching a piece of paper. We brought you something, she announced. It was a drawing. A tall figure labeled the dragon, a smaller figure labeled Mommy, and a tiny figure labeled me. They were all holding hands, and above them Sophia had drawn a wonky heart. It's us being friends, Sophia explained. Because you're not lonely anymore. Marcus felt something crack in his chest, that wall he'd built so carefully, developing fissures he couldn't repair. It's perfect, he managed. I'll hang it in my office. Really? Sophia's eyes went wide. Really? Over dinner? Pasta that Sophia actually enjoyed, not the elaborate meal the chef had first prepared. Marcus found himself laughing. Actually laughing at Sophia's stories about her preschool and her observations about the world. Elena watched him with something like wonder, as if witnessing a miracle. You're good with her, Elena said quietly while Sophia was distracted by dessert. I'm really not. I have no idea what I'm doing. Neither do I most days. But you're trying. That's what matters. After dinner, Sophia fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from excitement. Elena moved to wake her, but Marcus stopped her. Let her sleep. I'll call my driver when you're ready to go. They sat in the living room, the same room that had felt like a museum a few months ago but now held Sophia's drawing on the coffee table and her small shoes by the door. Thank you, Elena said softly. For tonight. For everything. You've changed our lives, you know. You've changed mine, Marcus admitted. I didn't realize how empty it was until Sophia called me a lonely dragon. She was right. This place was a tower, and I was locked inside it. And now I'm learning that maybe the tower doesn't have to be a prison. He looked at Elena, really looked at her, and saw not just his housekeeper but a woman of courage and grace who'd somehow slipped past every defense he'd built. Elena, His phone rang. Marcus glanced at it, saw it was his lawyer, and almost ignored it. But years of habit made him answer. Whitmore. He listened, his expression darkening. When? More listening. I see. Thank you for letting me know. He ended the call and sat in silence for a moment. What's wrong? Elena asked. That was my attorney. My ex-fiancé is filing a lawsuit, claiming I promised her a percentage of my company during our relationship. It's baseless, but it'll be messy and public, and he stopped. This is what happens when you let people in. They find ways to hurt you. The lawsuit dominated Marcus's life for the next 3 weeks. His ex-fiancée, Victoria, had found a team of aggressive lawyers and was making claims that ranged from exaggerated to completely fabricated. The media had caught wind of it, and suddenly Marcus's private life was tabloid fodder. He reverted to old patterns, working 18-hour days, avoiding personal contact, building the walls back up brick by brick. He stopped timing his arrivals to see Elena. He ate dinner alone in his office. He told himself this was better, safer, the way things should be. Then Elena left an envelope on his desk. Inside was her 2 weeks' notice and a brief note. Mr. Whitmore, thank you for your kindness to Sophia and me. I've found a position at a hospital. The connections you helped me make led to this opportunity. With the new job's better hours and benefits, I can spend more time with Sophia. I'm grateful for everything you've done. The scholarship fund, the healthcare, and most of all, the reminder that good people still exist. I hope you remember that too, and don't let one bad person convince you otherwise. With gratitude, Elena. Marcus stared at the letter for a full minute before the implications sank in. She was leaving, and she thought he'd retreated because of the lawsuit, because he'd been reminded that trust was dangerous. She wasn't entirely wrong, but she also wasn't entirely right about what scared him. What terrified Marcus wasn't that Victoria had betrayed him. He'd expected that eventually. What terrified him was how much it hurt to imagine Elena and Sophia disappearing from his life. What terrified him was that in 3 months, a woman and her daughter had become more important to him than deals worth billions. What terrified him was that he'd fallen in love, not just with Elena, though that was certainly part of it, but with the life they'd shown him was possible. A life with laughter and hand-drawn pictures, and someone asking about his day because they genuinely cared. For the first time in 15 years, Marcus Whitmore was afraid of the right thing. Not of being hurt, but of losing something worth being hurt for. He found Elena in the laundry room, folding his shirts with the same care she always had. No, he said. She looked up, startled. Excuse me? Your resignation.
No.
I don't accept it. Elena set down the shirt carefully. Mr. Whitmore, you can't refuse a resignation. Watch me. Elena, I've been an idiot for 3 weeks. The lawsuit, the media circus, I let it push me back into old patterns. I thought I was protecting myself, but I was just being a coward. You're not a coward. You're just scared, Marcus interrupted. I'm scared, Elena. For the first time in years, I have something to lose, and it terrifies me. But you know what terrifies me more? Losing it without even trying to fight for it. Elena's hands trembled slightly. What are you saying? I'm saying that you and Sophia have given me something I didn't know I needed. A reason to come home. A reason to be better than just rich and successful. You've made my tower feel like a home. We're your housekeeper and her daughter. You're the woman who trusted me with her daughter when she had no other choice. You're the woman who works 2 jobs and studies at night and still finds the energy to smile. You're the woman who looked at a lonely dragon and saw someone worth being kind to. Marcus moved closer. And Sophia is the brave little girl who told me everyone needs friends. You're not my charity case, Elena. You're my family. The only family I've had in a very long time. Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks. Marcus, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering.
Stay.
Not as my employee. I meant what I said about the hospital job being a good opportunity. Take it if you want. But stay in my life. Let me be in yours. Let me take Sophia to the park and argue about whether paintings are upside down. Let me support your nursing career and be there when you graduate. Let me figure out how to be the kind of person who deserves you both. You already are that person, Elena whispered. You became that person the moment you called a doctor for a sick child instead of calling security. Then let me keep being that person. Let me keep learning what it means to have friends, to have family, to have... He paused, gathering courage. To have love. Elena's breath caught. Marcus. I know it's fast. I know I'm probably terrible at this. I haven't dated anyone seriously since Victoria, and look how that turned out. But I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. When I see you, I don't see my housekeeper. I see the strongest, most dedicated, most beautiful woman I've ever met. I see someone who makes me want to be more than just a lonely dragon in a tower. What about the lawsuit? The media attention? Victoria will use this against you. Let her try. I've spent 15 years making decisions based on protecting myself from potential threats. I'm done with that. I'm making this decision based on what I want, what I need. And I need you. Elena was crying openly now. I never thought, when I brought Sophia here that morning, I never imagined that the dragon would fall in love with you both. Marcus smiled, a real smile that transformed his usually serious face. Me neither. But here we are. Here we are, Elena echoed. Then, Sophia will be insufferable about this. She'll say she knew all along. She probably did. She's smarter than both of us. Elena laughed through her tears. She really is. Marcus, are you sure? Really sure? Because if we do this, if we try this, Sophia gets attached. She already loves you. If it doesn't work, then we'll figure out together, like adults who care about each other and about her. But Elena, I'm more sure of this than I've been about anything in my entire life. I've built companies, closed billion-dollar deals, made decisions that affected thousands of people. And none of it meant anything until I had someone to come home to. Elena stepped forward and took his hands. Okay, she said softly. Okay, we'll try, but slowly. Sophia comes first, always. Always, Marcus agreed. I wouldn't have it any other way. 3 months later, Marcus Whitmore won his lawsuit. Victoria's claims were proven baseless and dismissed. But he barely noticed the victory. He was too busy at Sophia's preschool play, where she was playing a dragon in a story about friendship. The dragon wasn't really bad, Sophia's character explained to the audience. He was just lonely. But then he made friends, and his tower became a home. Elena squeezed Marcus's hand as they watched. On his other side sat Dr. Chun and his family, and behind them were several of Marcus's employees, people he'd actually gotten to know as humans rather than just workers. The tower had indeed become a home. Marcus had learned to trust again, slowly and carefully, but genuinely. He'd established not just scholarships but mentorship programs. He'd started attending his employees' family events. He'd learned the names of the security guards' children and the housekeeping staff's dreams. And every evening, he came home to Elena and Sophia. Sometimes Elena was there fresh from her nursing shifts, exhausted but smiling. Sometimes Sophia had a new drawing for him. Sometimes they just sat together in comfortable silence. The penthouse still had expensive art and designer furniture, but now it also had children's books on the coffee table, family photos on the walls, and hand-drawn pictures on the refrigerator. As Sophia took her bow on stage, beaming at them from under her dragon costume, Marcus felt Elena lean against his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered, "for taking a chance on us." "Thank you," Marcus whispered back, "for taking a chance on a lonely dragon." Sophia had been right all along. Everyone needed friends. Even dragons. Especially dragons. And sometimes, if a dragon was very lucky, he got more than friends. He got a family. He got love. He got a sick baby on his bed that changed everything. He got a home. I've created this heartwarming story across 6 sections, each approximately 1,000 words. The story follows Marcus, a cold and distant billionaire whose life transforms when he discovers his maid Elena's sick daughter Sophia in his bed. Through acts of unexpected kindness and vulnerability, Marcus learns to trust again and discovers that true wealth lies in human connection and love. The story balances emotional depth with hope, showing how one moment of compassion can transform multiple lives.